Hey everybody, welcome back. Craig Schaub here with George Thomas, our film critic from the Akron Beacon Journal. George is here. We are talking movies, actual movies, one movie at least that was released theatrically. George, did you have fun at the movies this week? Were you happy to be back in the theater again?
Being back in the theater was a different experience. Well, although I did go to Centers last week, so. But
2 weeks in a row. What's wrong with Hollywood?
Well, I had to pay, and that's a first for a while. So there we go.
Well, this week we have The Accountant 2, I want to say, long-awaited, anticipated sequel to the 2016 movie. This is I don't know if this was a delay for COVID or for the writer's strike or whatever, but it seems odd, a 9-year gap between the first and second one, although the first one did do some solid box office, so I can maybe see why they went that route. But are you as perplexed as I am about this 9-year wait?
Dude, that was a lead on my review. I basically wrote I didn't have sequel to The Accountant on my cinematic bingo card for 2025, but here we are. And you know what? Yeah, it did a respectable. It did 144 globally.
Okay.
And Ben Affleck was the biggest star, so they did. And John Bernthal had nowhere near the profile then that he does now.
Right.
So, I guess I could see it. The original creative team, including the writer and director, are back. But what's the axiom for sequels? Same thing, only different, right? And I got caught up in watching The Accountant, the original, just because I didn't. It's such a surprise because the original is so forgettable. It's I can't even call it eye candy. It's like narrative candy. You know what I mean? Okay.
Right. Just kind of a movie that existed.
Yeah, assassin with Asperger's syndrome.
Right.
Okay, that was moderately interesting for a minute. But the Gavin O'Connor, I believe that's the director's name.
Yep.
And the screenwriter, and I don't have his name handy. They basically take the somber, serious tone that one had, and they flip it on its head. That's not necessarily a bad thing because although it pretty much devolves into a standard action pick, I think they realized with that first one, thus explaining the sequel, that there was an opportunity there for them to do what's basically become a buddy a buddy movie between brothers. Right. Christian and his brother Braxton, played by Bernthal. And, The Accountant 2 may ultimately prove to exist like its predecessor. But whereas I won't remember anything from the first one, I will remember the relationship between Christian and Braxton because they lean into that chemistry that Affleck and Bernthal have. And it's thoroughly enjoyable. There's some nice moments here as they basically try and. Did you see the original?
I did.
And you forgot it.
I did. Yes. I knew this was coming out.
They're basically working on trying to find the killer of one of the original characters.
Okay.
So there we go. And the best moments are them being brothers together and getting to know one another after 9 more years of estrangement. So there we have it. Entertaining, sure. Appreciate that brotherly love.
Right.
If you're looking for anything mind-blowing as opposed to mind-numbing, you're not going to find it.
Ben Affleck had such an interesting career. There are times where he makes great choices, like in Argo, The Town, other movies like that, but then there are times where he has Pearl Harbor and other movies that just are instantly forgettable. What do you make of him? I mean, this is a guy that's he's had a lot of successes. He's a successful actor. I think he was borderline a better director than an actor in a lot of ways, arguably, with some of his movies. Gone Baby Gone, a very good movie as well. What do you sort of make of Affleck and his sort of career path and choices? And I know his directing has kind of taken a little bit of a back seat because Live by Night did not do very well. So he kind of maybe went into director's jail before coming back for Air. But it just seems like he's had this really up and down kind of career.
I think it's him battling the need to go commercial with the need to be artistic.
Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind, he's done, within the confines of a movie, he's done both. The Town, for instance, that's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. Argo, it's a great movie. But, maybe one of those situations where he's got those movie star looks, and when you have those movie star looks, what do people expect of you? They expect you to be a movie star. Never mind that with his first film, he and Matt Damon won an Oscar for writing Good Will Hunting.
Right.
I mean, I think part of his issue, his career stems from that need to prove himself in both ways.
Right. It's interesting because he's had this career where I think you would think that Affleck, the director, has made pretty solid choices. Affleck, the actor, maybe hasn't. You kind of wondered, like, do you think he should make better choices as an actor, knowing that he's made good choices of the material that he's working with as a director, writer, producer?
I'd offer this. Perhaps maybe he made the sacrifice as an actor to get his projects greenlighted.
True.
Now, see that in the case of the Accountant, this Accountant 2, this one exists only to establish a franchise.
Okay.
I mean, with all due respect, the sequel is already set up. So this, I think, is more of a money play. I mean, this comes from his production company.
Okay.
And his production company has a deal with Amazon MGM Studios, or I think it's a first look deal. So in that respect, maybe it gets him a film like Air, something like that, which was thoroughly enjoyable and leaned it into more of the artistic area, because who the hell wants to make a movie about Nike shoes?
Right.
So there we go.
Yeah, I've always kind of been of the belief I'm more interested in Affleck behind the camera. Now, if he wants to be in his own pictures, that's fine too. But I'm more interested in him behind the camera than I am in him in front of the camera. Not that I don't think he's a good actor or anything like that. I just feel like he kind of seemed like he got it as a filmmaker. Argo especially was a very, very funny, dark satire, dark comedy, a great look at the industry and the world of entertainment and its impact on society and perceived impact on society. But then he's also able to kind of go back to his roots and make those sort of Northeast New Englander movies like Gone Baby Gone, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and The Town, as you mentioned as well. So yeah, I kind of want to see more Affleck behind the camera, because I think he had a great transition to behind the camera that really made me intrigued what his career could be like as a actor turned director, or maybe like a kind of like a Clint Eastwood type of career, where obviously Eastwood was a lot more prolific as a director, but maybe someone like that really transitions well into that avenue.
And it could be that's his next chapter. I mean, be honest with you, he still looks great. The movie star looks haven't gone anywhere.
Sure.
I mean, he could still lead films, obviously, but maybe he's eventually, sooner rather than later, pointing his trajectory in that way. I mean, if we're being honest, maybe some of this is personal as well, because let's face it, he's had a tumultuous personal life.
Yep.
And in some ways, maybe he's still trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
Right. Okay. A final grade for The Accountant 2?
I gave it a B-, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, our next movie is this is going to be streaming on Netflix. This is Tom Hardy starring in the movie Havoc. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Gareth Evans, Ray, directs this film.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen Ray, but I recognize Gareth Evans' name because he's been associated with being influenced by Hong Kong films. You look at Havoc and he's been influenced by Hong Kong films because it's violent, it's graphic, it's bloody, and it's well made, it's well choreographed. The action scenes are well choreographed, and at times it feels like you're watching a what's the Grand Theft Auto on screen.
Okay.
In some moments, Tom Hardy plays a likely corrupt detective in a northern American city. Could be any city in the north, on the east coast in America. I think that's intentional on Evans's part because he could say this could happen in any town in this country. Blah blah blah.
Right.
Hardy is the fixer on the police force for a local businessman. He's definitely corrupt in some respects, but he has this twisted sense of morality. That's the best way to put it. He finds himself in the center of a drug deal gone very bad. Double crosses, triple crosses, involving an Asian crime family, his fellow corrupt cops, and the politician's son, or the businessman's son. The businessman is played by Forrest Whitaker. So Gareth Evans has assembled a nice little cast here.
Yeah.
And, it's standard fare, breezy 1 hour and 40 minutes. It's got Tom Hardy. What can you say? I like Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
So, and it's on Netflix. If you have Netflix, it's worth a look. There are worse ways to plow through a Friday or Saturday night if you're not inclined to go hang out at home or go to the theater or where else.
Well, and Hardy's another one of those guys too. He's like Affleck, made some interesting choices as an actor, although very well respected and kind of one of those chameleon-like where he really, kind of is willing to do a lot of different things and kind of blend in at times to movies, but then also he can stand out even when he's not talking, like a Mad Max, for instance. Fury Road, he was fantastic when he didn't have a whole lot to do speaking-wise. Although I still think he was a little bit misused in Dunkirk when Christopher Nolan, decides to not really use him too much, as at least to show his face anyway. But Tom Hardy is one of those actors that really respect, and he always brings something interesting to the table, even in the Venom movies. He's always doing something unique, or he's making it his own in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think you're right. One of those types of movies, maybe where people have a Friday night at home. Maybe they watch a movie and see what Tom Hardy's up to. What's your final grade for Havoc?
Actually, I rated it a little bit better than The Accountant. I gave it a B because I'm always up for a well-made dumb action flick. So,
absolutely. Well, and I know this week a little bit lighter release week. Obviously, The Accountant coming out, The Accountant 2 coming out, but Sinners was all the buzz the last few weeks in advance of its premiere last week, and then also after a pretty darn good box office take for an R-rated vampire action movie. Now up over 60 million opening weekend total, and hopefully we'll be continuing on that path moving forward. But you had some interesting things that maybe stood out here as we are in the wake, I guess, if you will, of the maybe controversies that are coming out after it. Now, I know that you're talking a little bit about anti-Christian controversies. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts there.
Um, the Christian rapper Lecrae has accused the film of mocking the faith. Now, I don't know. Did you go see it last week at all?
I have not seen it. We were out of town last week, so did not get a
Okay.
chance to see it.
All right. I can see his point. I can also tell you his point is wrong because he comes at it from the standpoint. I should say I disagree with his take. He comes at it from the standpoint that the church is religion, faith. The church is not faith. It definitely mocks organized religion, without a doubt. It mocks the hypocrisy of a lot of individuals who claim to be of God. And you and I have discussed this before. This has always been my problem with religion. I organize religion. There's just too much hypocrisy, not in faiths, but in the way the message is delivered by certain individuals and organizations.
Hmm.
And that's what he's mocking. And it comes at a pivotal moment in the film where I guess they're not spoilers after a week, right? Where the lead vampire is trying to woo Sammy, the main character in the movie, into freely giving himself so that they can share this bond over that religious pain. That and all of that. And it's one of the more powerful moments in the film. And I just happen to think Lecrae's take was off the mark significantly.
Right. Well, I think sometimes it's good to have these types of discussions too, and I think it's also good that movies that maybe from the outside looking in you wouldn't expect to be very deep. Like not many people think of a movie like that coming out right before the summer months, but still, it's a genre movie, action. You've got Michael B. Jordan. You kind of think, yeah, this is going to be just kind of a surface level action movie, and it's not. It's a deeper than the surface level, and I think that's a good thing. And I think it's good to spark debate, to spark controversy, if you will, because that's what art can be, and that's what art should be in a lot of ways. And I'm glad that it's good that people have takes from both sides of the fence, but I think it's also good the fact that we have a movie that can inspire that too in a lot of ways. And Sinners does that.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. Like I said, I understand his point. I can see where it's coming from. I like the fact that we can discuss it, even if somebody's off base. That's a sign of an intelligent movie,
Right?
Raising the discourse. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's just another feather in the head of director Ryan Coogler, who wrote the film as well. So there we
Absolutely,
go.
yeah. Well, and I know we talked about it. You gushed over it, and obviously you can read George's reviews of those movies. An A- review for Sinners, among the best of the year for you, and can't wait to see how that movie kind of grows. Hopefully, the box office and maybe make some money, and Ryan Coogler can continue doing his thing where he's now in that territory where he can make his original movies year after year, or however often he wants to make them. So he's definitely a talent, and I can't wait to see this movie and see what he does as a long future that he has ahead of him in this industry.
Well, to let some people tell it, he's going to end the studio system as we know it. So
Well, that was a little bit of a debate where so if I read this right, he's going to get the rights to the movie after 25 years, correct?
Correct. It's a deal that Quentin Tarantino had with Miramax years ago. It's not unheard of.
Right.
Yeah, that was the other controversy of the week because people are like, he's got front end points, which means he gets paid before. But the thing that got me this weekend, I normally don't do a double take on variety headlines. Just like Ben Stiller, I'm going to give, not that Ben Stiller listens to us, but I will give Ben Stiller his props for pointing out the obvious double standard
Yeah.
and saying it made 60 plus $1 million
Yeah.
and it but has a long ways to go to profitability. And it's like, what? And I'm like, post pandemic, those are great numbers for an original film.
Oh yeah.
Period. No doubt. And I just found it interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand the thought that, if it needs to make 185, 190 to be profitable, it's going to be neck and neck with that probably. But it seemed like they were trying to, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, jump on the movie as if it had no chance of being profitable, and because it's not profitable, who cares? And it's like, you know, this is the kind of movie though that could get good second weekend numbers because of the word of mouth and maybe a little bit less competition with The Accountant 2. Now, obviously, when Thunderbolts comes in May, in early May, that it'll probably win the day. But we need to champion these types of filmmakers, these types of movies, because everybody complains about how we get Marvel number 524 movie, and here we get something that's completely different, original, and the chance of it being an R-rated taken, and it's been successful. And much like Oppenheimer was of the successful R-rated movie, it's showing that we can make original films. We can give these people the time and the budget that they need to make those movies and not cut the corners. And some of them are going to be really profitable. Some of them may not be as profitable, but why can't we champion a movie that did pretty damn well opening weekend, and instead of trying to put some sort of a asterisk on it or something that they were kind of doing with Variety's headlines, where it's just like, let this movie be what it is. It's among one of the highest rated movies of the year, and it probably will maintain that Rotten Tomatoes score and then some. It's going to be a movie that is long thought after, well after this year. So why can't we just be happy that somebody made something that is different and unique and original?
I'd love to meet the editor who wrote that headline.
Right.
I really would. I really.
And I wonder if they would say anything like that if Steven Spielberg had a movie that was rated R that maybe didn't do as much money.
I don't think the Post opened that big.
No.
And
even West Side Story was in the pandemic-ish area, but still, like, why even bother trying to dredge up some like clickbait headline or something when you say, if the projections were 40 million and you make 48 or 45 or whatever it made domestically, why isn't that a win? If you're projecting 40 and you make 45 or 48 or whatever, how can you not say something other than the long way to profitability or whatever? So shame on them for kind of trying to stoke the fire for whatever reason they want to do that. But this is the kind of movie that we want to try to make more of. This is an art form. It kind of came up a little bit with, the studio, as I'm enjoying a lot of, and they had an episode yesterday talking about sort of this, almost this idea of what is art. They had the big franchise that Seth Rogen's character was talking about, and they're making this satirical movie from Spike Jonze about diarrhea zombies and everything. And
I haven't seen that episode yet.
Oh, you haven't? I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
No, don't worry about it. I got 5 episodes in, and then I have to start watching other stuff. So
Right.
I'll be catching up on a lot of stuff over the summer. But
but it's like this idea that, and I know that's been a theme a little bit of the studio is trying to make art and make it unique and make it original. And of course, we get into the mode of the franchises do better, but why can't we have standalone one movies of Sinners that just do well, are well received? And I was talking about this with people at work saying like Warner Brothers would probably trade the 98 or 97 or whatever percent, 99% Rotten Tomato score for a 20% and make $500 million on the movie, which I get it. It's a financial business. You got to make money. But that's the idea. Like, maybe Warner Brothers can say to themselves, we've invested in Ryan Coogler, Paul Thomas Anderson this year, and we are, in a way, trying to get back to that thought process of Warner Brothers is one of those pedigree studios that will make box office successes. They'll make awards contenders. And I think they're always going to kick themselves because they lost to Christopher Nolan, because they kind of lost sight of that a little bit. They lost sight of the theatrical business, and now they're trying to make up for it. Maybe they overextended on Paul Thomas Anderson's movie. Like, I still think it's a little quirky. I don't know that it's really going to make back a $175 million budget and then some. But what?
Yes, Sensei.
Yeah. But then you also have a movie like Sinners that comes in. It's a $90 million budget. It's well within reason, I think. It's probably reminiscent of what Jordan Peele has used on like Nope, another original movie that was a blockbuster, and it's done better than expected. So hey, Warner Brothers can say that we are cultivating great filmmaking, and maybe the projects need to be reined in a little bit, like One Battle After Another doesn't need to be a $175 million budget for PTA, but they're also proving to the industry, like you're going to want to come work for us because we're going to give you some money and we're going to let you make the movies that you want to make. And that's what Christopher Nolan was successful at doing, post Dark Knight, obviously, the trilogy. But, certainly Ryan Coogler has gone that route like Christopher Nolan, where he's made the comic book movies, he's made the IP movies, and now he's really getting into his career where he's going to get that budget, make that movie that he wants to make, and he hits it out of the park with Sinners.
Can't argue with anything you said there.
All right, well. We're going to wrap up real quick today. Next week, I'm assuming you'll have Thunderbolts next week?
Yeah. Disney's not screening it.
Oh, so you're going to have to go to a...
Already got my ticket.
All right. Well, sounds good. As always. Anything else on the horizon for next week?
Let's check the old calendar. I think everything is cleared out for that. Yeah, it's all by its lonesome. There isn't even an independent film on that date.
Okay. All right. Well, as always, you can read George BeaconJournal.com, all of his reviews and his weekly streaming column. George, thanks so much for stopping by. We hope you have fun at the movies next week.
All righty.